The one special individual that made me into the person that I am today, I would have to say my mother. And I know it sounds cliche or a typical answer, but my reasoning goes far beyond just because she's my mother. She grew up in poverty. She grew up in a farmhouse from a young age. Didn't really have much opportunities to grow and succeed as a person in life. So that was just one of the obstacles that she had to overcome. Another obstacle that I would say is very dear to me and important to me is when she was pregnant with me. She unfortunately didn't finish high school and was unable to go back to school, but she didn't let that stop her. She didn't let that stop her from pursuing her dreams, her passion. She went back to get her GED because she wanted a better life, not just for her, but for me. As I grew up, she wanted a better lifestyle for me than she had, which is something that I respect 1,000% and will always appreciate from my mother. And that was just one instance. Another instance, why I picked her would have to be the fact, when she was studying to get her CDO, she could have easily, the first time she failed, she could have easily said, no, I'm not doing this no more. I give up. I'm gonna let this beat me and defeat me. But instead of doing that, she grew her mind. She never quit, never said never, never was okay with failure. And so she had, the late nights studying up and just working on passing her test. And that's something that I use today in my everyday life is the fact that if I fail a test, I can't be okay with it. I can't be okay with just a bare minimum and raise my expectations. So when I do something bad in class, I can't just sit there and blame myself or complain or cry about it because there's no time for that. And then that's something that I take away from what my mom taught me from a young age was just to overcome it, live, learn, and grow. Those are things that are big with things that my mother told me, and those are things that I take with me dearly every day, and no matter what I'm doing, whether it's schoolwork, actually working on the job site, um, you know, she is another reason I appreciate her is because she's a rock star. She works in the most male dominated industry there is. She has her CDL. She passed it. Fortunately passed, and I'm happy she passed her CDL, got her CDL. She's been driving for multiple years now, but she's been working in a very, very male dominated industry for a while. She works in the oil field hauling water for the oil rigs, and it's just a very, very male dominated place, and a place that if men sometimes don't like to work with women, but she doesn't let the negativity stop her. And that's just how her life has been, and that's why I appreciate the fact that I take those things into consideration every day with what I'm doing with, whether I'm moping because I failed a test or I'm complaining about things not going my way. I have to stop sometimes and look at myself and just realize that it could always be worse. And the person that motivates me every time I get down on myself is I look at my mother and I realize the trials and tribulations that she went through just to get to where she's at. And she's determined to do the best. The bar for her is not here, but yet it's up here, and that's something that I appreciate in my everyday life, and that's why I chose my mother because she's just the world. To me, she's the best. She's a rock star. She's strong. She's very independent. She doesn't really need nobody. She doesn't like to rely on nobody. And that's kind of the same way I am. So, in conclusion, that's why I picked her. Thank you.